The way it normally goes with a webinar is you find the thing, right? You decide, okay, I'll exchange my email. And then what happens? Then you get email nurture sequence. Those tend to convert into booked sales calls like 1% to 2% of the time. Where I've taken kind of that typical lead flow and changed it is you sign up for our webinar and immediately you're dropped onto a lead qualification form that's like, hey, thanks for registering. To complete your registration, can I ask you a few more questions? And that has led to 10% of my new leads who are converting on some sort of content offer becoming sales calls. So that's 5x more leads by basically putting the ask in a different spot in your lead funnel. All of my friends, whether they're agencies or in-house marketers, I'm like, you have to start doing this with all of your content offers and lead magnets.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to another powerful episode of Marketing by Design. I'm your host, Andy. I'm the founder here at MMG Design in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm super excited to share my conversation with Logan Lyles with you today. Logan is the founder of Demandshift, which is a B2B webinar lead gen company, and someone who has generated incredible results. Logan's someone recently have gone through a career transition from working in-house, and we're going to learn a lot about Logan's story today. But what I want to hit on here too is how you can take experience in a past job, a past role, something that you have delivered outsized value in a past role, and go and package that up, create your offers, and do it for yourself. Head over to LinkedIn afterwards and give him a wholehearted support as he starts his new venture. And if you are anyone who needs anything webinar related, you have any questions related to getting that started, definitely head over to his LinkedIn profile to learn about everything Logan is doing to get results for exceptional B2B teams and drive actual pipeline and traffic through B2B webinars. And in this episode today, we're going to talk a lot about Logan's past career in journalism, everything he was learning through podcasting, marketing, and how he became someone who built this asset of himself in order to go and scale and do his own thing. So again, I'm super excited to share my conversation with Logan with you all and learn the lessons inside of it. This is entry number 104 of Marketing by Design, and this is Logan Lyles. Let's go.
Yeah, my long story short is from journalism to sales to partnerships to marketing to sales and marketing. So it's kind of been like this meandering kind of weird path, but it's actually kind of stacked on each other in kind of a sequential way that doesn't necessarily look sequential initially, but as I've looked back on it, kind of does. So I graduated college in 2008, which was a great time to hit the job market. Great recession was in full swing. And on top of that, I graduated college with a journalism degree. And that industry was going through some massive disruption around that time. Lots of newspapers were closing their doors. Online media was, starting to explode. Media outlets were trying to figure out, are we a newspaper anymore? Are we an online content hub? Are we both? What is the freaking business model for all of this? And so I probably found my first job in B2B tech sales because I realized I couldn't make a living in journalism, at least, in where I wanted to live and where I was already married at that point, getting ready to start a family, that sort of stuff. And for the first year or so of sales, I absolutely hated it. I was like, I don't like talking people into stuff. I don't like the pressure of the quota, but being honest and communicating and having to persuade people that my product was the best. And after the first year, I kind of found this rhythm because I was selling technology, like I said, and I found that, hey, I'm kind of a tech head. I kind of nerd out on different things, whether that's cameras or software or whatever it is. And I was like, well, I can just kind of translate some of that passion, some of that interest, and kind of become more of a teacher than a salesperson. And guess what? It actually made me a better salesperson and I enjoyed it more. So I kind of found a rhythm there. And from there, I spent 10 years in B2B sales until 2018 when I had the opportunity to join a marketing agency called Sweetfish that specialized in producing podcasts for B2B companies. And I'd met the founder on LinkedIn. And up until that point, I'd kind of been looking at what HubSpot was doing and seeing the way that marketing was evolving, this whole inbound and content marketing stuff. I was like, that's kind of a lot like what I learned in journalism school, but marketers seem to get paid a little more than journalists. So that's
Mhm.
kind of interesting. So my first step over into the marketing side was kind of a blended role where I took over sales for our podcast agency at Sweetfish, and I got to host our daily B2B marketing podcast, but I was also running sales for the agency at the same time. So it was really fun. After that, I got the chance to step into a few roles in house at a SaaS company called teamwork.com, where I got to build a partner program and then have my first in house full time marketing role where I was hosting their podcast and doing some partner marketing stuff there as well. And now, kind of coming full circle, I'm back in kind of a blended sales and marketing role as director of growth at Business Builders, where we're a full service digital marketing agency. I'm running all of our marketing, our webinar, our podcast, naturally still doing lots of podcasting, but I'm also running our full cycle sales on the front end for the agency. So I like to say I'm a marketer who feels too much like a salesperson and a salesperson who feels too much like a marketer to be completely comfortable in either camp.
hmm That's a good thing. I mean, because if you're comfortable, you're not doing something right. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's great, man. You know your story well, and I mean, I'll ask the traditional question, but how has your background in sales like helped kind of how you think as a more in the transition to the marketing side now? Does it
Mhm.
impact kind of your messaging, or are you able to kind of remove from the mindset of, oh, we're just trying to reach this audience and get this message out there
Mhm.
versus like being able to see the other side of it? How has that kind of helped you out?
Yeah, so I think my experience in sales, I first realized this like I'm a salesperson who thinks like a marketer who thinks like a salesperson, about 3 months into my role at teamwork.com, where we were spinning up a new webinar campaign. And this motion I was going to help direct the content for, be the host and moderator of our webinars. And I was asking the team, well, who have we asked to be guest speakers on our webinar series before, or for various webinars? Because we didn't really have an ongoing series, and they were like, well, this person, but we haven't really been able to get anybody on the line unless we pay them to come be a speaker. And I'm like, really?
hmm
What sort of outreach are you doing? How many touches? And they were like, well, we emailed each person once. And I was just like, if I ever did that as a salesperson, I would lose my job very quickly,
Yeah.
right? In
hmm
sales, we know it's not just a numbers game, but the numbers are part of the game,
hmm
right? And so those sorts of things of, yes, we can do these things at scale, but then when it comes to the one-to-one, you've got to understand how many touches it takes, reaching out on multiple fronts, leveraging referrals and intros, those sorts of things. And so I leveraged some of that sales experience of cold calling, email outreach, networking in marketing when we were, trying to find guest speakers for our webinar. So that was just kind of one example. I think the other piece that I learned a lot is, people I've kind of said this, I don't know where I got it from, maybe someone else who deserves more credit, but marketing oftentimes is really about reach and sales is about relationships. Well, one of the things I think we'll talk about later is this shift to the who economy, where relationships are even more important. And I think that marketers who are able to build relationships with content creators, with other complementary brands, with influencers in their space, if they're able to build those relationships, well, that can enhance their marketing because they can find collaborations or even paid influencer partnerships, whatever it might be, that can actually help their marketing be more effective. But if you're just thinking about what channel, what message, how do we blast this out there, and you're not looking into the market that you serve and networking and building relationships there, then you're not going to be as effective a marketer as you could be.
Yeah, that's spot on, man. And like I see it as you have the perspective of you know how to get the reach, you know how to get a message out there, and then the marketing aspect of it is what helps you deliver on that.
Mm-hmm.
And even I've seen that just since, attending some of your webinars, getting into your funnel a little bit. You have the social awareness piece of it, I would say, to know like this message is actually impacting the right person. And
Mm-hmm.
then being able to actually fulfill on that with the valuable content, with the having the guests on that are adding value to the right audience. Because I think where a lot of people mess up is that they just focus on the more button, more and more and more. How can we get more people aware of this? When
Yeah.
actually, if they don't have that social awareness kind of on the back end of, is this actually valuable to this person? Um, it's kind of rare to see both. Um, and you can think of the exceptional examples, like those are the companies, the products, the brands that people affiliate with and they stay with long term. That's where
Mhm.
things like community and um, ongoing relationships that are nurtured over time are become a lot more effective.
Mhm.
And as I've kind of taken notes and gotten to see how you guys operate, I see a lot of those commonalities there.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate that feedback too, man. That's great to
yeah,
hear.
man, for sure. I mean, I'm I won't gas you up too much, but I give credit where
Good.
credit is due.
Yeah, I don't need it.
Yeah. Tell me, so a big interesting part as I look at your story a little bit is the podcasting. Um, and
Mhm.
we talked about this a little bit off air in terms of both of our experiences with having podcasts, but you've been in and out of several different shows. You have a
Mhm.
lot of experience guesting. Your studio looks killer, and I'll get there one day. But what have you learned from podcasting that have kind of helped you build this, trifecta of skill sets? Because you have the sales, you have the marketing, you have the communications. What have you
Mhm.
learned from podcasting that's kind of been able to be the gasoline on that fire?
Yeah, for me, podcasting was kind of a forcing function to work on my public speaking skills,
Yeah.
which even to this day, like getting up on stage gives me anxiety, like stepping in front of a camera just simply does not. So it was a forcing function to get on the mic initially. Like when I first joined Sweetfish, and that was kind of my first step into podcast hosting, we were still recording on Uber Conference before we moved on to Riverside, where we moved all of our clients on so we could capture video, which is the platform we're recording on today. I also am a big advocate for Riverside as well. But so it started with the mic, and then it started, getting comfortable in front of the camera. And you mentioned my video setup here for anybody who's watching the podcast. Like that actually came because while I was at the previous agency, Sweetfish, we decided to do a course on B2B podcasting. And um, getting comfortable and being in a situation where I had my lighting right, I felt comfortable. The camera was set up, and I had my notes or a teleprompter or something like that. It took a lot, and I was kind of fumbling, and that was kind of getting in the way of me getting in the reps of being on
Mhm.
video. And so part of me leveling up my studio, which is still kind of a work in progress, was I want to just be able to hit record anytime, right? If it's a quick video for LinkedIn, if I'm hopping on a podcast as a guest, if I'm recording video course content, right? Which, it worked that way. Within the first 3 months of joining Business Builders, we did a video course on our on the framework that we help a lot of businesses implement for their messaging that can help them as much as double or triple their conversion rates. And you can even see that now if you go to storybrandcourse.com. You can get that. It's a free 5-part video course on messaging, putting that into action on your website, and then the rest of your marketing. Well, I was able to record that way easier because I had put in the reps, and the studio was kind of an enabler. Like, don't let that hold you back, but just ask yourself, what are some of the things you could do to make the environment easy for you to record audio and video
Mhm.
content? Because the more reps that you do, the better that you'll get at it, right?
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that's helped me is it's made me a better interviewer, right? There are different sorts of podcasts. You can have kind of your solo style podcast, you can have more commentary style, or you have your typical interview based podcast. And for me, doing so many interviews, I was able to ask better questions, which also made me a better salesperson, but it also made me a better marketer to dig into the specifics, right? Because people can find the generic answers. They can do a search on Google or Chat GPT right now, right? And get kind of the answer that anybody would give. But if you're going to go a layer deeper, and you've got someone on in an interview based format, you've got to ask those next level questions and be pointed with them to kind of mine for more of that gold. So those are two things for me, helped my overall communication skills, but also helped my sales and my interviewing skills, I think. And plus podcasting is just freaking fun, man. If you're doing
Yeah.
interviews, it's like you have a license to get free consulting from people who are smarter than you, which I've had the opportunity to do quite a bit at this point.
Yep. That's so good. All spot on. And I'm a big fan of how you made that comparison kind of to you're using it as an aspect to improve all these other areas of your life. I'm a huge believer in on time learning. So if something comes up in
Hmm.
your journey, that's when you really go deep in on that thing. And
Hmm.
I think, having the depth of career roles where you're trying a lot of different things, it exposes a lot of things that you need to get better at as well.
Yep.
So I think something like podcasting is a great way to not just improve, all the things we talked about, speaking, connections, interview skills. It's also a really good chance to just create that habit of putting yourself out there and because you have to have kind of a forcing function to get your own unique ideas out there. I mean,
Hmm.
you've
Yep.
built kind of your own brand and some of the phrases that you talk about your experience, and that doesn't get fleshed out. You can't build a personal brand unless you have these platforms where you can kind of exercise a little bit of like the thought leadership.
Yeah.
Um, and I know personally, and we kind of help people get self-aware on this as well, is you can find that forcing function to just do it because it's not something that you're going to do, off topic. You can post on LinkedIn, you can do all that stuff. But if you're not getting in front of people, usually via video, via interviews, via collaborations and stuff like that, it's hard to really accelerate that growth and build your own thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but tell me about kind of you guys' role. Like we talked a little bit before we hopped on camera, um, about your role now and what you guys are doing at agency builders, business builders, and
Yeah.
sort of because you do have, like I said, we've talked about like your experience and how you kind of use that to do a little bit of this jack of all trades role now, where you're doing a little bit of the sales, you're doing a little bit of the marketing, and I
Yep.
think you have a really interesting kind of lifestyle now where you're able to pull on those experiences. So talk about you kind of a day to day now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wear two hats, and I've kind of, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, kind of the jack of all trades. Some days it's really frustrating because I'm like, I'm not like world class at any like one thing. Like I'm known for this and solving this problem, which I think poses some challenges. But at the same time, I think, there are a lot of ways that you can be a very successful generalist, especially as you kind of arm yourself with different tools, different AI tools, obviously that are continuing to progress that you can kind of use as like the Iron Man suit to put on, and especially help you in those areas that you don't have particular strengths in. So my day to day is kind of twofold right now. So I mentioned I'm currently director of growth at Business Builders. We're a StoryBrand certified agency and HubSpot Platinum partner. So we like to say we blend the messaging and strategy with the tactical execution and connect those dots for businesses to help them grow. So we're often helping introduce them to the story brand framework to get clear on the problem they solve, the character of the story that they're telling, and position their brand as the guide. And a lot of companies in their messaging, they have those elements, but they're not talking about them in the right way, or they don't have clarity on those key components. Like they have kind of a fuzzy idea. So we help them get crystal clear on our messaging, because back in 2018, when our founder read Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, when that book first came out, he was like, this makes a lot of sense. Let's try it. And we went
Mhm.
through that book. We took the 7-part storytelling framework from it, and we rewrote our messaging on our homepage. Just updated the copy. We didn't rebuild the site, go through a brand redesign, but just by getting clear on the message and rolling that out as new copy on our homepage, we doubled our inbound leads month over month because we doubled our conversion rate. And so that's a big thing that we help clients with today. And then now, if you get that messaging clear, not only can that help your website convert more, helps all of your marketing be more consistent, more effective to drive results there. And then at the same time, the other hat that I wear is in the agency builders community that you mentioned. So about 4 years ago, Jay, our founder at Business Builders, was getting together with a few other agency owner friends. You swap notes with your peers and said, hey, it'd be really cool if we all kind of got together once a year. And Jay's like, well, our agency's based in Northeast Florida. People like that. It's a good place to kind of draw people to mid to late spring. And so the Agency Builders Retreat was born. And we just, as the time of recording this, within a month ago, we hosted our 4th annual Agency Builders Retreat, had nearly 100 agency owners there for 2 days of networking and content. But what's cool is for people who can't make it there, we have about 400 agency owners and leadership team members that are getting together, asking questions, daily on our private Slack community and now our Circle community. And we've got a free and a paid version of those memberships. But I was just talking to a member today, and he's got a full-time marketing role in-house, but he also does some consulting and has a small two-person agency on the side. And he's like, man, just people popping in there and asking questions. There are questions that I've been dealing with, and 5, 6 people chime in a recommendation. Oh, I tried this tool. This is what I didn't like about it. Or here's how I handled bringing on a new salesperson for our agency. He was like, I've taken some of those answers and then put them to work in my own small agency, and I've been able to, go further faster. And so I'm doing not as much direct sales because it's not kind of a service-based business with the community, but I'm doing the same sort of thing of marketing that community, whether that's guesting on podcasts like this or hosting our own podcast at Agency Builders, or talking about the things that we're doing and some of the content that's being shared in that private community out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like two of the things that I'm bullish on, you can probably tell because as much as I try to stay neutral in these interviews, I do really, follow my own self-interest and my beliefs get out there. But
Yep.
podcasting and community, two things that I'm huge on right now,
Yep.
especially in the age of um, like commoditized informational content.
Yep.
It is any way that you can have these unique perspectives that are applied to what you're already seeing
Mm-hmm.
is, and I've seen it over and over again. I try to take that mindset too when we're creating our own content. Is how can you apply differentiated viewpoints, community storytelling, all these things to what's already out there. And
Mm-hmm.
because there's these proven frameworks or these things that people that want to know, and you see a lot of it on LinkedIn. You see a lot of the saturated, you know, hooks and all these
Yeah.
things over
Yep.
and over again. But
Mm-hmm.
the things that I'm engaging with, I try to put on like a third person viewpoint, is that I'm like really engaged and excited to learn about. It's the stuff that even with design, because we talk about design a lot on this show, it's the stuff that's designed sometimes poorly, but there's such an authenticity in it to where it's storytelling. It's provoking you to read the next line, like even like screenshots or like low res images or things that are taking off now that we're seeing with clients too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's all about experimentation and the the substance that's behind it. And it's really hard to put words to, and it may sound a little bit woo even as I'm saying it, but so much of that has come from, and even in my personal experience, so much of that has come from the ideas that I get from these interviews or the ideas that
Mm-hmm.
I get from, the community that I'm in on Circle 2. It's more of
Yep.
a local one. It's called Web Designer Pro.
Oh,
But
nice.
so many of those ideas all come from the same place. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really hard to generate those when you are kind of alone because I imagine like especially in agency builders, a lot of them are solo, a lot of them are smaller, getting started
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but then you also have people that they can learn from that can accelerate your growth too, which is a big
Yeah,
part of it too.
absolutely. Yeah, we've seen
Um,
that mix exactly in that community for
yeah,
sure.
I think that gap, that like Logan, like
Mm-hmm.
that gap between that's where those ideas come from is like you have these aspirational goals, you have these people that are ahead of you and it's like your mind goes to a place where how do I get there, like what's the next step. That's where a lot of these ideas come from too. So there's so much value in accelerating your own path by standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
That's a
And you
big
bring up
value.
a good point there too of like finding people where the gap isn't so large. Like before we hit record, you and I were talking about one of our mutually favorite creators who's Jay Klaus at Creator
Mhm.
Science, right? When I first started watching him, now he's gotten a little bigger and he's got even more production team and stuff like that. But when I first started watching him, I was like, one, I like watching him for two reasons. One, his content's great. It speaks to me as a content marketer.
Mhm.
But two, he was like a little bit further ahead, but it wasn't like watching Gary Vee or Alex Hermosi
Yes.
or someone who's just like, or even Diary of His CEO, Stephen Bartlett,
Bartlett,
right?
yeah.
Or,
Mhm.
a huge podcaster like a Joe Rogan or something like that. That's maybe a stretch because that's, kind of different category. But still,
Yeah.
like whether it's podcasting or content creation or a LinkedIn creator or someone who's run an agency, it can be great to not only have someone that you can look to aspirationally who's way out there, but like who's 2 steps ahead, who still
Uh-huh.
remembers, like, because it was like 1 year ago where they were dealing with this exact thing, right? They don't
Uh-huh.
have the 12 steps to get to, an $10 million agency, but they can help me go from a fledgling, well, not fledgling, but 250K agency to $1 million agency to a $2 million agency, those sorts of things. And we've seen a lot of that in the agency builders community. So I just
Uh-huh.
want to call that out because I think you're spot on there, man.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's because it does get overwhelming when we're automatically fed the best of the best content. Like the bar is very high.
Hmm.
And a lot of times those are from people that are the high status. They've reached something
Right.
that's a bit less tangible for us. And I've even seen it like some of the conversations I've gotten to have with agency owners just through LinkedIn where they're at that next threshold. They're at, just the one where it's like, man, like you can almost tangibly imagine like what that would look like to get there. And I guarantee you, man, that the biggest thing that I've learned,
Hmm.
um, as I, fledgling as we go through, is that there's someone out there that's done it before you.
Right.
Um, and as someone who is, reserved and um, has some imposter syndrome at times, like it's really reassuring to know that, there's a lot of other people that go through the
Hmm.
same stuff.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think that's the power of community. Like social media networks are great. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, as I know you do, and that's where we met. Right. But
mhm,
I think these smaller niche, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more comfortable asking maybe embarrassing questions or things that people wouldn't necessarily answer publicly on LinkedIn because they don't want to, share too much. That's really where a lot of growth can happen. And that's why we're taking. So, if people want to check out either of these two communities, I would encourage you to. We've been talking about agency builders. So, if you're a solo marketing consultant or you're running an agency or growing an agency, check out agencybuilders.com and you can join for free, get plugged into that Slack community I was talking about. But we're also going to do the same and go even broader with our business builders community. I don't have an easy URL to give you, but maybe we can put it in the show notes because it's actually waitlist right now. And that community is going to be more for CEOs, entrepreneurs, business founders of all types of businesses, not just marketing agencies, and the in house marketers who are trying to grow those businesses because we want to give them a place to ask questions, to get that sort of feedback, to get those answers to questions that they can implement right away, like that other community member was telling me about just the other day.
yeah, awesome. We'll absolutely include all that. Um, I want to double click on something from earlier, so it's going to seem like a bit of a hard pivot.
Cool. I like it.
But when we, I'm trying to keep you on your toes, but when we talk about sales again, so kind of unpacking your
Okay.
previous history, how it's led you to rule now, were there any overcomes that you had to approach mentally? Because covering this with a little bit of context, a lot of the people in the AMA are younger. A lot of them
Mhm.
have, aspirations of like, what is the role that I want to thrive in? And the thing that I'm seeing is that some type of sales or communication is really key to not just know, just to get yourself out there more, which is, the first overcome.
Mhm.
But were there any like personal overcomes where you had to say, like, convince yourself, like, okay, I kind of have to get myself out there a little bit more? And what did that look like for you?
Yeah. I don't know if this is exactly the answer you were looking for, but it's a really fun story.
Mhm.
And it has to do with being very early in my sales career. So I almost got punched and knocked out on a sales call.
Okay, yeah,
Back
let's
when
let's
I
unpack.
was in my maybe second sales role, I was selling office equipment like copiers and printers, and I was in the Denver area. It's a lot of like in person cold calling, right? No, not
Uh-huh.
cold email, not cold on the phone, but like walking into businesses, introducing myself, leaving a business card, that sort of stuff. And I happened to walk into this local construction company in a Denver suburb, and the guy was kind of typing away at his computer. And, I'm fairly unassuming. I tried to be laid back in my cold calling approach of, hey, I see you're busy. Just wanted to leave a business card, maybe introduce myself. And he said something. I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty rude. And so I just like turned around, but kind of mumbled something under my breath, like, geez, man, like calm down or something like that. And I
Mhm.
walked out. And by the time I walked out, I was out on the sidewalk and I could see in the window where his chair was in the office that I had just been in. And I swear it was like twirling around, like kind of like, Roadrunner or Wile E. Coyote, where there's like a cloud of dust where someone used to be and they just sped off. Maybe there was some
Uh-huh.
smoke coming up from his chair. And then all of a sudden I see this big burly dude that I had just been talking to. And he's like, "What did you say to me? Do you have something to say?" And he was like getting in my face. And I just like slowly backed away. Like there was a little bit of back and forth. I don't remember exactly what I said, but the point of that story was, talking about putting yourself out there, like overcoming something. I remember getting back in my car, my my heart is beating and
Uh-huh.
racing, and my face is flushed, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I really hate sales now.
Uh,
And two, I'm like, okay, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I usually go back to the office after my cold calling, in the middle of the day around 4, do some data entry, follow up calls and stuff like that. And I was like, what are the odds that I'm going to have that bad of a cold call if I make 5 more stops and 5 more cold calls before the end of the day? And so I like physically had to force myself to make a few more stops, make a few more cold calls before I went back to the office, and obviously told the rest of the sales team this funny
yeah.
story of nearly getting decked by this big construction company owner. But that was, I think back on that a ton, and that's kind of a real, literal example of, putting yourself out there and getting over that. But I think, even without risking getting punched by a prospect, you can embrace some of the failures where you don't get a response to an email, or you don't get the job, or you pitch someone to be a guest on your podcast who's a little bit quote unquote out of your league and they say no, or you invite a speaker, or whatever it is. If it doesn't work out, that's not the end of the story, right? Take another
Yeah.
swing, make a few more calls, try again with someone else. And odds are you're probably not going to get punched and knocked out on the sidewalk like I almost did.
Yeah, dude, spot on. Like the I think so much of it is and we kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning, is just the mindset and approach. Like if you genuinely believe that what the offer is matches the audience that's behind it,
Hmm.
it doesn't feel like sales at all. It feels like a
Yeah.
conversation. And
Right.
I think so
It
many
feels like
people get,
helping. It feels like, hey, I have kind of almost a moral obligation to share this with
yes.
people because I found something that helped, especially if you've experienced the problem, right? That's the most fun I've had as a marketer and a salesperson when I'm selling
Mhm.
to or marketing to someone who I've sat in their seat before, right? And that's why I'm passionate about our agency builders community because I've been on the agency side twice now, and I've also consulted agencies. So I kind of understand some of their typical problems and I've felt them. And so being able to market to or sell to that audience just feels, like you said, not like sales.
Yeah, and people can tell, man. Like
Hmm.
and I think the biggest overcome is when you don't have the reps, when you haven't been at it that long,
Hmm.
you automatically, especially when it's an audience of one, we're always going to have the most negative feedback of ourselves. And a lot of people, myself included sometimes, all they can think of is what experiences with sales roles that have been bad for them, like their own
Hmm.
personal negative experiences.
Right.
And that turns them off from wanting to even dip their feet anywhere within 100, even when it comes to positioning their own offer in front of a perfect fit audience. Sometimes it, there's an overcome for them. And
Hmm.
I think the most practical thing and the thing I've learned from you so far is just to get the reps in and to know that there is a capped downside to just how bad it can be. Because
Yeah.
so you're not going to get punched in the face usually.
Right.
I'll let you know if I do, but
Yeah.
it
A
hasn't
capped
happened yet.
downside. I like that.
Yeah. But I mean, the Tim Ferriss approach, like that changed my life. Where I don't know if you ever heard of his episode on fear setting, but
Oh, I have
that
heard that
whole
one.
approach, yeah, that one's really good. I think it was a solo episode that he did, but basically his approach is you take anything, especially in like a hard call or something you're nervous for, or a big conversation, to its logical worst possible case
Yeah.
scenario. Like take
Okay.
yourself
Yeah.
step by step by step, and you go to the end of it and you realize, like, man, it's not that bad. And I
Right.
try and think about that all the time because we always picture these huge downsides, like,
Hmm.
and we're so risk averse that we can't even imagine how good it can possibly turn out. We don't allow ourselves to go there for some reason.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there's part of that, and man, like with sales and stuff too, it's a big it's a big misassociation because people view it to their own negative experiences rather than just adding value and benefit to others. So that's like, I think so much of it is kind of psychology and how you approach it. And once you sort of overcome that and get the reps in, I think it takes care of itself.
Hmm. Yeah, well said.
But yeah, spot on, man. I think that's kind of a good place to land the plane. Um, we usually cap off the episodes by asking, on a high note, like, what are some of your current obsessions? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Are you maybe pickleballing or doing any mountain biking or something like that? And in life and in the business, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. For me, it's actually this new two-step lead qualification flow that I've been implementing at work. So as I
Sounds
am
about
doing
right.
marketing for our agency,
Mm.
it is not something we've started implementing for clients yet, but I'm open to hear if people are interested in us kind of running this play for them. Essentially, what I've been doing is anytime we have any sort of lead magnet, could be a content offer, a checklist, our video course that I mentioned earlier at storybrandcourse.com, our webinars. Basically, instead of the way it normally goes with a lead magnet or a webinar is you find the thing, right? You decide, okay, I'll exchange my email to get access to this content, right? And then what happens? Then you get email nurture sequence, and hopefully they don't blast you with like a right hook of sales right away. It's like, hey, Andy, you downloaded this. Here you go. If this helps you, then maybe our paid offering would help more. And you kind of drip out 4 to 5 emails, that sort of stuff. Those tend to convert into booked sales calls like 1 to 2% of the time, right? Because 97% of your market is not in market right now, right?
Mhm.
But there's 2 to 3% typically that is. And so where I've taken kind of that typical lead flow and changed it is, Andy, you sign up for our course or our webinar or whatever, and immediately you're dropped onto a lead qualification form that's like, hey, thanks for registering. To complete your registration, can I ask you a few more questions? And
Uh-huh.
the way you structure it, there's some nuances to it, but basically
Yeah.
ask a few lead qualifying questions. And if they are a hand raiser, like they're a hot lead, not just kind of a general cold lead, then you present them with the option to book a call with you about whatever your product or service is. And
Uh-huh.
that has led to 10% of my new leads who are converting on some sort of content offer becoming sales calls. So that's 5x more leads by basically putting the ask in a different spot in your lead funnel. And
Uh-huh.
so that's something that I'm actually going to be sharing more about in an upcoming webinar. We don't have the landing page up yet, but if people are interested in how could that two-step lead funnel work for me, hit me up on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm pretty easy to find there, Logan Lyles, and let me know. And by the time you hit me up, we'll probably have the webinar live or some other assets sharing more about how you could use this too. But like all of my friends, whether they're agencies or in-house marketers, I'm like, you have to start doing this with all of your content offers and lead magnets.
Huge thank you to Logan for coming on the show this week. Like I said, make sure you guys follow him and support him in his new role over at Demandshift. Shout out to our sponsors over at AMA Columbus Chapter for being the presenting sponsors of this episode. And I want to invite you to sign up for a free homepage breakdown. Take me up on this. Another set of eyes on your website to get you on the right track. So that'll be below as well. I invite you to take me up on that. And as always, we will see you guys next week on Marketing by Design. Peace.